Wonderful. Thank you so much. And welcome to our panelists today. I'm super excited about our conversation and what we're going to learn about the future. On our next slide, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Institute. We built our Research and Insights Institute focused on exploring that intersection of people, process, and place. What is the role that our place plays in building a positive impact for our clients and for our communities? What are people really thinking underneath the hood? What are they feeling? How are they feeling today in the new hybrid remote and the post-pandemic world? And then what processes do you need to put in place in your life, well-being, around wellness, as well as around work, to be able to be the best version of yourself? And then how do you create the right place for that environment to have you continue to thrive into the future? So we're thrilled to be here today. Super excited to let Stevi talk a little bit about our partnership with her and some of the work that we're doing together. Stevi, please share who you are and all the great things that you're doing at Wellbeing.
Oh, thank you so much, Kelly. You're always so kind and welcoming me into this community. Wise Wellness Guild was really founded on a pretty simple purpose that we really want to aim to advance women through whole self wellness, helping them to achieve peak performance and avoid burnout. We know that women are at the highest risk of burnout, but we really are designed and well intended for all. If we can help to support corporations and connect them with those experts in local communities, we know we're able to better help drive habit change, and making resources vetted and available to employees is really meaningful for us. One of the things that I'm the most excited about stepping into this relationship with you, Kolar and KEI, is that I know that we both have a love for using data and analytics and science to be able to validate our approach to being able to create more well environments for people, for process, and for place. And so knowing that we are partnering here, we're working on some things for female entrepreneurs with the Power to Pursue Summit, as well as stepping into some potential relationships with some of our corporate partners as well. So thank you so much for having us here today, and I'm looking forward to diving in.
Great, thanks so much. Mary?
Great, thank you. So as we talk about this topic today, we thought that it would be good to level set ourselves in this conversation about what is this idea of well-being? What are we really talking about? Because I think that the pandemic and what we've all been going through these last couple of years has really brought this to life for us. And so if we lean on Merriam-Webster and what their definition is, it really is a beautiful, holistic definition that well-being is about the state of being happy, about being healthy, or being prosperous. And it's our overall state of health. It's our mental, it's our physical, it's our emotional, it's our spiritual. You'll hear the panelists talk about even our financial wealth, our cultural wealth. How does this all come together in terms of our overall state of health? And so you might ask a little bit about, okay, well, that's fantastic. Why does it matter? You know, what is this all about? Yes, that feels good. That sounds good, but does it matter? Is it proven? And so, yes, you know, it is proven. What the research tells us is that when individuals are thriving, they do better in life. And you know, our employees are people that are part of our companies, when they are thriving, then our companies do better as well. And there's a graphic on the next slide that captures this sentiment. And so, you know, the idea is here that, you know, it matters for each of us individually. It really matters for our businesses as well. And what we know also from research, and we know it even intuitively, each of us in our daily lives, is that our workplaces, these places that we spend so much of our life, it has an impact. Whether it's the working conditions that we have at work, whether it's the demands of our work life, our work environment is a significant source of our stress in our life. And we know this pandemic has brought it to life that this workplace stress really is taking an ever higher toll, physically and psychologically on us. And we're seeing record amount of spending in terms of healthcare costs to address it. So a topic really worthy of some discussion. And so, we want to learn a little bit about who we're meeting with today. So we've set up a poll here that we would like to ask you to participate in. And we'd love to know how you're doing. This is anonymous. And there'll be a little panel here, a poll that just popped up hopefully on your screen. And if you don't mind, we'd love to know how you're doing. Do you feel like you're thriving? You're doing great. This has brought great things for you. Are you struggling in this moment, or are you somewhere in between? I think one of the things you'll hear as a topic and a theme as we go through here today is this idea of really listening and this idea of really understanding where each of us are. So love to understand how we're all doing as a group here today.
Mary, I just
Sydney,
came
as those
off
numbers come up. Oh, go ahead, Kelly.
Yeah, I just came off of a 3-day summit with the Women's Business Enterprise National Council. And this topic was such a hot topic because depending upon where you are in your journey, people are literally all over the map. And I think even by evidence of our poll today, we're gonna see the exact same thing. So that was about 100 CEOs leading organizations across the nation, as well as about 100 corporate partners that are members of WBENC. So great conversation starter today, and something that we're seeing nationally as well.
Great. Yeah, thank you. And your point there shows up in our poll results here. So, as a group here today, gathered together, some of us are thriving, some of us are somewhere in between, and some of us are struggling. So important to know how we're all doing. So thank you all for sharing where you are. And the reason we did that, we thought that was quite interesting, is the next slide is going to show a graphic from a recent study that was commissioned by Microsoft in partnership with Edelman. And as you can see here, it asked the same question. Are folks struggling, or are they thriving in this moment of their life? And it broke it down, as you can see, by different groups. And the key point, the key takeaway that the researchers had from the studies is really for each of us taking a moment to pause to understand exactly what Kelly just said, which is we're all at different moments in our life and different parts of our journey and our well-being journey. And just because we are in one place, our peer, our partner, our colleague, our spouse, our family may not be in the same place. So just that awareness of understanding that we all come from this in different moments in our life. And echoed by
the one thing about that chart I think is so interesting is that the impact on the working moms. Just how significant that is right now, and women are dropping out of the workforce at exponential numbers. So I think the amount of stress that's being added as well, just across the board, you can kind of see here, just a pretty significant amount, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And so you'll see on the next slide here that, as Kelly said, really important topic going on right now for leaders who are leading HR in their company, as we think about retention and we think about people and how to help them be their best version of themselves, that well-being and mental health, it really is rising to the top priority, as it should be for our organizations. And at the same time as this is ranking as our high priority, the next slide pulls out an interesting insight that we also have shifts. We have changes in expectations of who is responsible for helping us achieve this well-being. And so some of our younger generations are saying, I expect my employer, I expect my workplace to help partner with me in my achievement of what this is. And so as we think about, as Kelly said, important parts of the workplace are leaving the workforce. We know that there is a quarter of the workforce that is considering leaving their employer at any one moment. And we know how important human capital is, in terms of retaining human capital and growing human capital. This focus on people, this focus on well-being is a greater priority than ever. And so with that, I'd like to turn it over to colleagues on the panel here to talk a little bit about some additional trends that they're seeing in terms of well-being.
Thanks, Mary. Last year, most of us were forced to work remote. And it was difficult to adjust as people struggled with the loss of small routines like getting a coffee in the morning, saying hello to colleagues, even the commute for certain people. Also, the lack of social interaction you get when you are with your colleagues at work, and also not having clear boundaries between work life and personal life. Now that we're starting to go back to the office, new and old stressors show up. For instance, having to plan your commute and dealing with bad traffic, just to be on time for an in-person meeting is something that we knew, but sort of forgot. And all of a sudden, people ask themselves, why should I have to deal with this type of stress every day? Another example that we hear all the time in our work is the big issue of noise in the open office. Now, again, this is not a totally new issue, but it is emerging as a critical one. These days, everybody's taking video calls, as this is now an expectation from clients and colleagues, much more than just a phone call. But there are typically in an open office not enough enclosed spaces available to go and do that Zoom call or whatever it might be. So people take them from their desk. And because people got used to more quiet work surroundings at home, this is now becoming a major issue, and will drive some change in workplaces. Next slide. Recognizing that people are different is important. And it's not always the case in workplace design. In our research, we identified different work patterns, and they are not only influenced by the type of work people do, but also influenced by their personal work style preferences. And so the more you force people to work in an environment that's not aligned with their personal work styles, the less effective they're going to be. And this is an issue that's been around for a long time, but now we have an opportunity to address that in new ways of working, by providing a variety of different work settings, including working remote, but certainly at the office. And so when you hear about hybrid or NWOW, this is not just having the flexibility to choose remote focus work, in-person collaboration, but really empowering people to choose what suits them best as an environment to be the most effective they can be. Stevie, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Serge. And I think that when we talk about the workforce, we're really talking about the humans that make the business go. And we sometimes forget that so much of what makes our company great is about the individuals that bring their best selves to the table. Although the workplace hasn't been designed to empower those people to bring the best version of themselves. And so I want to chat just a little bit about how we can really intentionally build and galvanize culture in transitioning work environments. The late Tony Hsieh of Zappos said that your culture is your brand, and it's never been more important than today. As we had mentioned before, these new issues, these issues that are coming up, have always existed. We know that, especially the Women in the Workforce study with McKinsey discussed these challenges about what this looks like for women, and specifically women of color, years before the pandemic hit. But I think that where we're saying is this is actually a fantastic opportunity to reevaluate cultural norms in the workforce that just simply are not working for individuals to thrive. And so on the next slide, we really get into the concept of aligning your corporate and company values with that of your individuals and teams. So what does that look like? How do I show up as me in this environment and feel psychologically safe and secure? How can I really understand what gets me up in the morning? Has my company even ever asked me that before? Most of the time, they're asking me what I'm really good at and what my skills are. So I'm a warm body with a pulse that can just fill a slot that they need. But truly, we're reevaluating as humans where we spend our time, and we want to spend time with people that are serving a purpose that we can get on board with, right? That we want to be on the bus, and being able to use that emotional intelligence to galvanize and forge those relationships by using a premise of values is really crucial. Also being able to buy into that broader culture and understanding that top-down leadership needs to also embody those values so they can see where they're going in the trajectory as they want to grow and achieve that peak performance. So it's really crucial to first start with just truly understanding and aligning your values. And then next is getting into the rituals. So being able to understand how every day you are going to reinforce that the company is invested in you so they can invest back into the company, and that it's a relationship, just like any relationship that you have. And this is, again, not new information, but it's even more important because not just for performance externally, but internally, being able to make the best choice for who you grow and cultivate and invest in from a succession planning and investing in those that really want to be leaders. Exploring these rituals can look as simple as how everybody at your company starts their day. How do you start every meeting? How can you ensure that there's this experience that can permeate, the four walls of your organization and can kind of translate to these hybrid and remote work environments? Are you creating space and time to get to know people as individuals, building trust and respect on a human level, so that way when you get into a project together, you already have established that you can trust them and you know that they're going to make the best choice because you have common values. It's understanding that we are human and that we have pets and we have families and hobbies and interests, and we should be completely accepting of, our whole selves. We don't just leave all of that, because the reality of it is that it's no longer about work-life balance. It's about work-life integration. How you gather as a team really matters. I have organizations that I'm working with that, instead of, doing a hybrid, they're saying everybody is working remotely. But as a team, we expect, these teams to gather at least 4 times annually. There's some people that gather twice a year and they block out, a full week of just team dedicated culture building and like planning and what that looks like. So it's again about what is the ritual and things that people can kind of come to know. Going to a sports analogy of, do you have those superstitions and things that you can really invest in your team? Embracing rituals that can be done anywhere. And next, building into, getting into that work-life integration of how are you empowering your team members to be able to take the time to renew. We know that occupational and financial wellness are required to be integrated into the concept of wellness because they impact our personal self so much. People who are peak performers care so much about their job and performance, right? And they put so much stress on that. And from a financial standpoint, that has a dramatic impact on our not only mental health, but physical, nutritional, emotional well-being. And so how can you start to, as a part of those rituals and cultural norms and parameters, start to talk about how many Zoom meetings a day are people having? What's expected of people? Can we start to move to walking meetings outside versus Zoom meetings? Is it okay for us to go and independently connect with people outside of a large group because, psychologically you just feel more comfortable that way? It's redefining the assumptions about where we need to do work and what we need to do it. And I think that the thing that I recently read is, time is the only non-renewable resource, and you can't create more time. But what you can do is help the people manage their energy. And so I would just encourage you to think about, how are you helping your employees manage their energy? Because we all know that performance is not tied to number of hours put in, but it's the investment and how productive people can be with the time that they're given. And I think that that's really kind of takes us into boundaries, and respecting personal boundaries as well as our individual boundaries. I don't know if anybody, I'll admit, I'm the first to protect the boundaries of my team, but me personally, I treat myself like garbage sometimes. I'm the first to say, yeah, I know I had that time blocked out, but go ahead, we'll just take 10 minutes and all of a sudden it's an hour. And I think that that's where, starting with me, again, understanding my values, reestablishing that self-worth and love in myself and protecting my boundaries, and then getting into broader, how can we then carve out these cultural norms and times to create boundaries for our teams, establishing those principles of, what is the right turnaround time? How many notifications, should we be getting for things? Do we need to send a daily email, or can this be turned into a weekly email? Does this even need to be an email? How are we managing this for introverts versus extroverts? And what are those triggering values that, if we know people well enough and we know that if a value of theirs is, yes, I want to be, I'm a family person and I want to be at my child's soccer practice, how do you respect that enough to know that you're not going to send that team member an email while they're at that soccer practice, or expect for them to turn something around? Because again, they will perform for you hand over fist if you respect their values and respect their boundaries and help them uphold that. This is also about the top down. So what works for me may not work for you. This is also about modeled behavior. People hear what you say, but really it's your actions that matter. And so if you are a leader, that's the biggest thing that I can encourage, is really understanding that you also have to change too. And holding yourself accountable in those same metrics, I think, will be really crucial, so you can also stay in the workforce and continue to grow. We saw on the chart that Mary said earlier, we know that a lot of those top leaders are really feeling it, but it's really those single parents and individuals, those new hires, keeping them at their jobs. You spent all of these resources, money, time, recruiting them, but also helping them to establish healthy boundaries on the outset will create incredible leaders to grow throughout your organization for years to come. And the last is, as we get into flexibility, I think it's really crucial that we understand that all of this is great, but we know that we have to be flexible, because humans are humans and things happen and preferences change and, seasons change. And so if we can allow for ourselves to have parameters and allow for ourselves to be able to create these rituals and boundaries and create these tent poles to kind of tell us, okay, how are we all kind of working together? Understanding that over time, as you work into this, you'll learn that investing in your people and allowing for them to have this psychological flexibility of understanding that you respect their desires and wishes of how they want to live their life and how work fits into that, we will be way more successful in retaining top talent and individuals if they feel like that's a part of the reward system as well. That trust and respect is the highest level of currency that you can give to an individual. And so if we think about this, how do we create these different understanding and norms? And it really kind of comes from, if you want to create immediate change, I think you have to really think about this at a team level. So maybe not your entire company, but maybe you start with a couple of key leaders that are really able to create a flexible environment for their specific group on a smaller level, and try to just get those things going and understanding how you can impact that at a larger level. I would say that, some people who want to be in the office, how can you make the best use of their time when they're there? We know that the worst case scenario is when somebody goes into the office and they've spent the time getting through traffic and parking and getting and packing their lunch and doing all of those things. And then they sit on Zoom meetings all day and the rest of the office is empty. That is the worst case scenario. And I continue to hear that. But if you can start to create the opportunity to say, if they really just want to get out of their house and that's meaningful for them, how do you make it worth their time? So that way they can really start to connect and galvanize the opportunities of you that are there. And so I think that being able to create these relationships is really crucial, and allowing for people to understand that it starts with me and getting into the we that we can better connect with one another. So Kelly, I'll go ahead and hand it off to you. I know we breezed through that, but excited to kind of get into any questions that people might have.
I love it. We've already got one question in the chat, which I think is fantastic. So Jonathan Wilkes, thank you so much for suggesting a good topic for us to cover first, which is how much responsibility do our panelists feel that employers have in helping remote employees to create an effective work environment at home? The place, the devices, the technology, the connectivity, as well as the professionalism of their brand. How much responsibility do you feel the employer has to help the employee be successful? So Serge, I'm going to hand that one over to you since you're the expert on the new workplace of the future with the NWOW, new ways of working remote. What are we seeing locally and what are we seeing globally?
Yeah, thanks, Kelly. There's a couple of international organizations we're working for right now, realigning what their new workplace will look like, both the in-person physical office as well as the remote work from home setup. Some countries have legal guidance on what that means. Won't get into that, even financial, but I think as an employer, you want your people to be most effective. And so to at least help them understand what it means to have a setup that is ergonomic if they are working several days a week from home, having the right tools to connect safely, securely, which is another issue that's emerged with the pandemic last year. How do you connect to company servers, avoid breaches and all of that stuff? So definitely there is a need, I would say, from the company's perspective, more so than maybe the employee. But then how to look when you are in Zoom calls, how to look on brand and these types of things. That's a little bit all over the place. Sometimes you do see right into somebody's bedroom still these days, but a lot of us like we have virtual backgrounds that help to just provide that level of professional background to avoid discussions or people teasing others about what they're seeing in the home. I think that's something that will continue. It's easy and not expensive. Some choices companies will have to make do get into budget issues. We've seen some companies that choose to invest some of the savings on real estate, not just in the physical office or collaboration hub, but also do some of that spending towards helping employees set up the right environment at home.
Yeah, and I think it's really about understanding what your team is going through. We have one of our clients is doing literally office in a box, drop shipping everything, sending it to them, shipping it to them direct so they know that they're ergonomically and digitally and physically connected in the right way. Obviously, your brand is critical. We're the brand building and branding of space, even though it's a digital space and physical space at this point. Always being on brand is so important for any company to represent itself and how you professionally look, how you act, and what is your marketing team doing to help promote that brand. So it's really about creating the right tools, the training, and the tech. And I love how Stevi led us off in the conversation around, the soft side. What can you do as a senior leader? So Jonathan, like you, like Holly Mazuka on this call, or people that are managing their HR in their offices, like Tracy Flanagan on the call from Human Nature. What can you do on the soft side to help your people be their best? So realize that you as a senior leader might be flying along like we saw in the data that Mary shared, but what can we do on the soft side of things? So Stevie, give us some actual real case study examples of what people can do to create those new rituals, to take care of their employees at home. I love your idea of that lead by example, but just give us some examples that you maybe have seen.
No, that's a great point. And I love that you've reframed. So Jonathan, I appreciate there is a difference between, there's responsibility and then there's also, I think, opportunity, right? So I really see when you think about emotional intelligence and leading with empathy, I really love the example. We're working with someone who starts every meeting with just like 5 minutes of breath work. And you're like, 5 minutes on a 30-minute meeting, like that's forever. We could get so much out of this. But what you're not recognizing is that somebody's probably rolling in from another meeting. Somebody's like coming in hot, flipping up their laptop, like trying to get on the Zoom call or trying to be in person. They're thinking about all of these different things. And what it allows for you to do is like starting, whether it's 30 seconds or 5 minutes of just investing in understanding, okay, I'm here, I'm present, I'm ready to go. Like it allows for them to be, that meeting is way more productive because they've been able to actually gather their thoughts of what they need to accomplish and say. And what we're seeing is that those meetings that traditionally always went over by 5 minutes, the 30-minute became the 35 minutes. Those meetings are now ending in 20 minutes. Even with the 5 minute, you're way more efficient with that. So that's one example. Another is an opportunity of closing the meeting with wins. So psychologically, stopping, like when you end the meeting and you end on a high note, allowing for people to verbalize, either calling out somebody else that they've seen doing something really fantastic, or being able to actually self-promote, has been really an awesome opportunity. It kind of allows for that to be, okay, I have to go back into the chaos. I have to get back into like the tyranny of the urgent, but I now feel really good about how I've left that meeting. And I know that like that's left a positive impression, mental impression. The very last thing I was going to say is I just reinforcing what Kelly was saying is I know that a lot of times the financial aspect is tricky with like doing the drop ship and everything, but I do want to reinforce that those, being able to give people the tools of just sharing that you understand what they're going through, and that using that empathy to say, hey, I've noticed on an individual basis, you seem to work from your kitchen island a lot. Have you considered that like you could get this standing desk, or you could stack books? Like full disclosure, ergo queen over here, right? When I work for my kitchen island, I have a stack of 4 cookbooks that I use, and it works fine. Like it's not anything crazy, because guess what? I've chosen that I love the natural light in that room, and I have a standing desk over here in my office. I'm not lugging that down. I like the fact that I can be flexible. So I'm saying in terms of like, there are a lot of ways to just use empathy and emotional intelligence to make small, when you've built trust and respect with somebody, you can make those recommendations to people and it's not offensive. It's more of like, hey, you were in this situation. Have you thought about this?
That's great. I love the soft sides, what you can do at home as well as what you can do in your workplace.
Yeah.
At our company, we've been implementing Traction. It's an entrepreneurial operating system. And one of my favorite things about a level 10 meeting is that you can go through and take a few minutes to talk about an employee headline or a customer headline. And just sharing a little bit about yourself, maybe something personal in your life that happened or what you're struggling with. You know, the headline can be positive as well as negative. It just creates that more humanistic approach.
Yep.
And I love that people are starting to introduce more personal. I mean, it was kind of fun in the beginning. You'd see people at home with their dogs and their cats and their kids, and that just created a whole nother level of knowing and understanding. But obviously now we're advancing, we're more professional in this digital setting.
Yeah.
You know, now you can create your meetings, like you said, that 5 minutes of breath work, that 5 minutes of customer or employee headlines, or whatever it might be. Create the segue.
Yes.
The other thing that I noticed with Humana, I've just started working recently with Humana, and just amazing what they do. One of the things they do that's so interesting is they with their meeting times is they gap their meeting. So instead of starting at 10 to 11, or 11 to 11 to 11:55, or 11 to 12, they gap their meetings. They start everything at 11:05.
Yeah.
So even if you have to pivot your internal team to give people that 5 minutes that might be coming in hot, like you said, it's just another way again for you to manage the time better for you and your team.
Yeah.
Give them that space to be able to, catch their breath, have a cup of coffee, use the restroom, those types of things. I think sometimes the schedule in this Zoom and hybrid remote is so demanding. We had a really good question also put into the panel by Keith Crone of Oster & Crone. Thanks, Keith, so much for joining. You've always asked the best questions of KEI every time, so I love that you asked this one. This is a really good one. I suspect the pandemic has revealed the strength of a company's true culture. Is your research finding new emphasis on culture? It's making a positive on all or most companies' culture, or did the strong stay strong and the mediocre stay mediocre? What's happening from a culture standpoint in business? And I'm going to actually throw that question over to Mary, because she's been studying this quite a bit as we're doing survey after survey, pre and post pandemic. And what's happening in the company culture side that you're seeing in the data?
Yeah, so it's a great question. And it's all over the place is the answer. And it really depends on a lot of the themes that folks have been talking about here. For some of us, some of the companies, you know, the remote work happened very quickly, right? We transitioned very quickly. For others, it was extremely intentional. And so, you know, what we're seeing is for companies that really worked on culture, that really made sure that as they ride the waves of whatever is going on in their company, that they've really been intentional about managing it and continuing to nurture the culture that they're trying to create, or ramping up and improving on a culture because they want to create connectivity and belonging, which is such an important concept. Both, you know, I think we probably all took it for granted that we had water coolers in our office when we were all working, you know, in physical offices or places that we ran into each other. But when we work apart, when we work in different places, when we have choice in where we work, we have to recreate, as Stevi said, those rituals and those habits. And those companies that worked on those rituals and worked on those habits, not just how the work gets done, but moments to laugh and moments to be human, as we talked, and moments to play together, to break bread together, to whatever those things are that let us be human together. Kelly talked about that, one of her favorite things in some of the meetings and rituals that happened for her. You know, those that really worked on that, their culture improved. Yeah. And those that didn't, that we didn't meet our employees, where we didn't meet our colleagues and our peers where they are and where they needed to be, or we infused one size fits all, you know, approaches to how we manage transition, those companies struggled and they saw waning results in terms of culture. So I would say the trajectory depended on intentionality about these themes that we're talking about today.
And then Mary, wouldn't you also say like about the pulse surveys and employee engagement strategies? You know, it's not measure once, it's measure often. To stay in touch, you know, doing a quick pulse survey, checking in with people, having a separate 15-minute, you know, management meeting with anybody that you might see struggling. I know here in our company, we measure weekly how our team is doing, and I now track that as a KPI. We also measure weekly the success of our meetings, of our level 10 meetings, you know, with you, Serge, and I, and Tiffany. So I'm just curious about, you know, what would your advice be on the metric side for people?
Yeah, I would say frequent is quite important, right? Because Serge talked about how things are changing, how the world is evolving. And we were having a great conversation the other day, and Serge said something really powerful, I think, which is, you know, we don't know what the future holds in terms of new way of work. It's evolving. We are all working on this together, and the answer isn't the same for each of our businesses and each of our cultures, right? So as it evolves, we have to continue to understand. And I think there's a beautiful sentiment in that was true before too. Even though we're going through a lot of change now, that was true before too, right? The journeys of our lives move, change all of the time. Think of the stresses that any that have kids, what it felt like the first couple months when you have a new infant, young person in your house, and everyone is adjusting to who's boss in that situation, to all kinds of different changes in our lives. So yes, I think frequent touches is a great idea because things move for all of us.
A lot of our people are saying, you know, oh, we already did a survey, we're surveyed out. I'm like, you're not thinking the right way. You need to be in touch and in the lead. And as leaders, there's a lot of, in that one chart you showed, significantly showed it, you know, senior leaders, they've been able to transition and be successful very, very easy. And then there's, you know, the other people that they're just not recognizing, that might be a little more hidden. And our people are our greatest asset. That's our best asset to move our businesses forward. So culture, I think, has become king. And, you said it best about Tony Hesse and what his passion was. So
Yeah,
yeah.
and Kelly, the only point that I would make is to build on Mary's is if you're going to ask the question, you have to be prepared to act quickly to make a change. That's one of the biggest culture killers, is asking people their advice and not acting on it, or in an appropriate amount of time, or saying, oh, sorry, there's nothing you can do about it. Well, why did you ask me then? And so just a little tidbit.
Exactly. Well, and that goes back to the whole program, right?
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why KEI and WISE are partnering so well together, especially around women in the workforce, because obviously as a woman entrepreneur,
Yeah.
we're also seeing quite a huge impact, and that data showed it on the one chart, how critical it is. So if you're in the legal or financial services area, or any of the large AE firms, or architecture, engineering, construction, you're seeing a significant impact on women in the workforce across the board, but also even more significantly male dominated. They're very pale and male industries. And so we want to watch out for creating that balance in the workplace, as we know that we need to, and specifically understanding what challenges some of your coworkers might be going through that you may or may not be aware of.
Yeah.
We had one great question, two great questions. So one quick question is, do you see surveys being used in small companies? I'm just going to answer that. Absolutely. We use surveys here. We use polls. Sometimes we even just do a quick poll because people don't want to reveal. So we just do a quick poll. How's everyone doing today? We pop a poll into our weekly Monday morning staff meeting. And Serge, I know you, obviously all of the work that we're doing together with all of our workplace strategies, every company, is large or small, is continuing to listen and create surveys as a tool and a mechanism for their business. So, if you need any help on what that looks like, definitely feel free to reach back out via email here. And if you want to learn more about women in the workforce and wellness and creating well-being strategies and programs to follow up on your survey results, I think Stevi would be an excellent asset and a follow-up as well here. There's one more question that I want to bring up. It's a global one, Serge, for you. What do the panelists think about the new law in Portugal about bosses cannot text their employees outside of working hours? Now, we're seeing a lot of lawsuits come up right now about workplace strategies in the pandemic, and we've all seen the risk. And as CEOs, it's our job to manage risk. Obviously, the government is leaning in as well, like the Portuguese government here. In this particular case, the pandemic caused everybody, to just do everything, anytime, anywhere. We saw a lot of exponential things like that. But tell us about, what are your thoughts around Portugal, and globally, what are you seeing right now around things like that and the shifts that are happening around management of employees?
Yeah, some countries in Europe, like France, have had very restrictive legislation around what you can ask employees to do, but also restricting employees who want to work maybe in the weekend or go into the office for something. That's not allowed over there. So the new legislation from Portugal is very restrictive. It creates new issues because it's not a matter of writing an email after 5 p.m. You're not allowed to send it, or at least the employee is not allowed to receive it. So new IT systems will have to come in to make sure that that law doesn't get violated, right? So emails may be sent, but going in a holding box or something until it's time to receive them. From my experience in Europe, not all employees are thrilled about those restrictions, because all of a sudden, while some may feel it protects me, my private life and how I want to spend my non-work hours, others might feel that it's restricting them, their freedom to work when they want, right? So we'll see how this evolves. But, there's a lot of work now for HR consultants. Some we're working with, new employee handbooks have to be made. Certainly it is very important for anyone who goes through a transformation to a new way of working. It's not just about the physical space, obviously. There is to make a successful project or a transition, there's certainly a need and effort in culture change management and helping people make that transition and providing guidance, guardrails of what expected behaviors go with a certain space, how to use them best. what was it meant for. We've seen companies make mistakes of simply thinking that the new environment is self-explanatory. Others go through the process more deliberate. It's quite interesting to see how that's evolving. There's a lot of HR consultants we're working with right now that are actually studying new way of working and trying to keep up with the evolving landscape.
It's great. I think that, so many of our corporate clients are asking us to redesign what's inside the envelope. So like hats off to people like, Keith Crone from Oster & Crone. I mean, we're seeing an explosion in demands for new furniture, new ways of working. And, people used to go to the office and sit, like, Stevi described, at their desk. Now if they come in, there might be a half empty environment. So now there's no longer this one-to-one. So the new hotelification, new trend happening, new Zoom rooms and new ways of having soundproofing for people to be able to work. We're seeing a lot of demand in that and the redesign of the envelope. We're also seeing, quite a bit of on-site retreat. So, you used to go off-site for retreat. Now you go on-site for collaboration and retreat. So we're being asked to design all kinds of new tools, technology, training, and we need that new furniture, Keith. So keep on bringing it. We need that new furniture coming because it's not
Yeah, so
out there.
to build on that, Kelly, it's really interesting. When everybody was remote, people that were working not from the main office, but another location, often felt excluded. And then what we learned was that people felt, okay, there's a level playing field. Now everybody's remote, so we're feeling more part of the team. And so what do we do today when we're going back, not to lose that advantage? So I think new types of furniture, better integration with technology so that it's the people who are there in person and the ones remote feel all equally connected. Yeah. I think that's a very interesting space, how that's evolving, and new solutions will have to be found. So, and the other thing is, to what you were saying, in the future, the office is going to have to compete with advantages that you get from working from home or another place that may be very attractive. So what should that be? Certainly not what it used to be, but we'll see how that evolves.
We love that new Logic Tech product and to help people working in a virtual and in person to be hybrid connected. Of course, Facebook came out with the new VR, AR, so we all could be here today with our little avatars working collaboratively in a virtual environment. So I think there's all kinds of new things that are coming ahead on the horizon. We're getting close to the end here of our conversation. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. We did have a few announcements that we wanted to share. So we're going to go ahead right now. And if there's no more questions in the chat from the group, I'm going to go ahead and take us to our gifts. And our gifts to you from KEI and the Wise Wellness Guild is a QR code downloadable white paper on hybrid works. Now what do you need to consider? Of course, our contact information for info@KolarExperienceInstitute.com if you want to have a conversation about surveys or polling or what kind of tools, what kind of technology do you want to use. You might be able to go ahead and reach out to us via that email for consultation or communication. And then, of course, Stevi, thankfully, has shared with us her 100-point wellness assessment, which we are now incorporating into all of our projects. It's downloadable as well right here. It's a fantastic tool. So you can see how you're doing. How are you doing? And then how is your team doing? So looking holistically at yourself and your environment and how you can create a better, best-in-class environment. The next thing is I wanted to mention is that it looks like Steve Doler is here. Steve Doler, love you. Thank you so much for announcing. He's conducting research on remote work. He's looking at a virtual and physical environment, and he'd love to look at a collaboration with the DAP industrial design class. So Steve will have to follow up with you. Would love to hear about that. And congratulations on your reappointment as well in your new assignment there at DAP. So excited for you. And thank you for joining. Our next thing we want to talk a little bit about is our self-care and social media workshop. We're creating a new salon experience here in a Power to Pursue Summit at Kolar. So please feel free for those of you that might want to join. The 9 to 12 is already sold out, but on 12/3, we're hosting another salon from 1 to 4 p.m. You can go ahead and log in through the QR code, just take a quick picture with your phone. If you don't know how to use a QR code, just take a quick picture and you can zoom in and register for that salon event here at Kolar. We also have a self-care and social media. People are, not really liking social media. Some people have an aversion to social media, but it's all about managing your brand now. in the virtual world. So we're going to do some self-care and social media training here at this event. And then of course, there's the big event, the Power to Pursue big event, the second QR code on the bottom left-hand side of your screen that you can see there, May 20th, 2022. Everyone is invited to attend that. It's going to be a blockbuster event at Memorial Hall with all kinds of sponsorship and all kinds of ways for you to learn about wellness and power to pursue for yourself, your own successful future. Stevi, anything else you want to share about the Power to Pursue event?
No, I think it's great. We are interested in understanding how we can help to support entrepreneurs in this region and really making sure that, we know that there are resources across the region that can empower business owners to know how to do their job. But what we found is that what they're lacking is the connectivity and the ability to build meaningful relationships, because so many of them are really isolated when it comes to leadership roles, CEOs and leaders. And we've been able, as Wise Wellness Guild, to kind of create, a platform that centralizes. But what I love Power to Pursue is really taking on the hard part about like creating the platform for that physical connectivity in person and providing meaningful programming like the self-care and social media piece. It's so crucial. It's all about organically, how do you grow your brand in a way that you can really connect with people and demonstrate to people about the power of your brand. But when it becomes a job, it's no longer fun. It's really taxing and can get really scary, the power of comparison. So we're really looking forward to partnering with you on this event. It's going to be great.
Great. Thanks so much, Stevi. We're super excited as well. So if you would like to sign up for that, please go ahead and snap a picture here. But of course, we'll also send you a download and a recording of this conversation afterwards. I want to make sure I especially give a shout out to Sydney Ginley and Audrey Iman, our partners in putting together this blockbuster presentation today, and all the great work that you did together. So thank you so much. And what's next from KEI and Wise? Of course, come to our salon, register for Power to Pursue, whether you're an intrapreneur or an entrepreneur.
Yes.
Still can be a great wellness focus for you or your emerging leaders as well. If there's someone that you may be worried about or concerned about, or you want to give them an opportunity to get out and learn and be with some other like-minded people to start to think about their own self-care and their well-being or grow. It's a growing learning opportunity. So we'd love to welcome you to that. Mary, thank you so much for all your data-driven insights today. Fantastic. Loved learning about what we're studying here at the Institute. Serge, of course, Workplace of the Future and the New Way of Working. Fantastic knowledge and share. And of course, Stevi from the Wise Wellness Guild. Thank you so much for your gifts today. We appreciate our partnership with you, and we look forward to what we're going to co-create together. Thanks everyone for coming. We'll see you at the next episode.